Welcome to the second day of the Kid Actions Policy Forum. It's really nice that you are all with us today as well, and also greetings to everyone who is joining us remotely from across Europe. We kicked off yesterday's forum in a very, very exciting way by setting the scene and by looking into what does the current research says about the topic of cyberbullying. We had very, very interesting presentations and discussions with the colleagues from academia, and we also had a very inspiring keynote from Alex, who told us more about his personal journey being challenged by cyberbullying and how he turned this challenge into something positive, building a big anti-bullying network across the UK that has empowered thousands of children and young people. Today we will go into practice and we give you a first insights of the tools and resources that we are going to develop as part of the Kid Actions project. And we will also facilitate a stakeholder roundtable discussing with stakeholders from industries, with practitioners, and also colleagues from civil society about their needs and how Kid Actions can actually meet their needs. So we have a full and exciting morning ahead of us. And with this, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to 4 colleagues who are part of the Kid Actions team. We have with us Alessio Palmero Ambrosio, who is an adjunct professor of advanced programming at the Department of Cognitive Science at the University of Trento. Then we have Enrico Maria Piras with us, also an adjunct professor at the University of Verona and a senior researcher here at FBK. And then also on site we have Federico, who's a PhD student and also working with FBK. And remotely, we also have with us our colleague Gareth Court, who is an e-safety consultant at European Schoolnet. And all 4 gentlemen will now give us a demo of the tools we are creating as part of the Kid Actions project, namely the digital education platform and also the educational toolkit. And with this, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Take some safety distance before starting. Okay, no, you do it. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Enrico Maria Piras. I'm here to give you the boring interview before Alessio will present you the toolkit that we have been developing in FBK in the last year. This is the table of content we will be talking about. There will be an introduction to the digital education platform, and I will try to link this project with past project that we've run in FBK in the past years. And we will show you, Alessio and Federico will show you the digital education platform in action, showing you, giving you some hints about how the 4 tools that they have been developing in the past year works. And then we will leave the floor to Gareth Court. He will present the educational toolkit, so the non-digital part of the overall toolkit that we've been developing over the year. And then we'll gather questions from you, of course, we will leave the floor to you to discuss what we've been presenting. So just to give you an introduction, thanks a lot. I'll be discussing especially why we came up with the idea of a digital platform. The digital platform stems from the idea that we need to go beyond the parental control paradigm, which is the idea that we need to restrict access to digital resources to kids, and we need to control what they do online, which is a part of how the digital education of youngsters have been conceived so far. And the idea that technologies are bad. I think Marco Pistori yesterday in the introduction said something about, Yeah, having a prop is always useful. I think Marco Pistori said yesterday that technology can be something threatening for the youngsters and for society, but they also can be allies. And this is the reason why we wanted to move beyond this paradigm of considering them just as resources to be avoided by young kids. And the idea is that we need to build technologies that can be allies of kids, educators, and teachers. And so what we've done in the past was to develop tools to also detect cyberbullying online, so providing some form of AI, artificial intelligence supported tool in order to prevent, to detect cyberbullying online, and so to help educators to fight it. But what we wanted to do also is to build tools that could empower educators and teenagers, especially teenagers, in making sense of what they live in and also understanding how to contrast it. And also what we're trying to do with this project is to integrate both the digital resources and the non-digital resources in a platform, making it available online. And as we move forward, yeah, no, can you go back? Sorry, not having the possibility to control it, it's a bit awkward, but yeah. No, it's all right, sorry. I'll leave the floor to you in a second. And what we want to do is not just build the things ourselves, but we want it to do in a cooperative form, which is required by EU projects, and we believe in it anyway. And so we need to have co-creation sessions with people who will use the tools, both with educators and children and teenagers, in order to see if what we come up with makes sense in their lives and can help them cope with the problem. So we will discuss also how we will co-create this together with the educators and the kids. Yeah, thanks a lot. Just to give you a brief example, brief overview in one slide. The path we're going forward is not new, is not entirely new. I mean, the idea that digital tools can help people to cope with cyberbullying, to contrast it, to detect it, is not new. There are a lot of applications on the web. If you search cyberbullying on your mobile phone, not on your mobile phone, but on your Android store or Apple store, you will find several resources. And we can map this resource into 4 broad categories. We have content-based tools that help to detect what happens, and so they help to provide content and education to kids. So in order to, the basic idea is that if you know what you're looking at, you will be able to contrast it, and we can provide some form of education to you. We have community control and parental control tools, so tools that can help teenagers to detect and report cyberbullying to relevant adults, both parents and community members who can act as a proxy to the police or to some form of guidance and control. And we also have automatic screening applications, which are the most advanced in technological terms, so the ones that make use of AI, artificial intelligence, to detect exactly the content of what's being shared online, and to see and to provide educated guess regarding the fact that that content is appropriate or not, is cyberbullying or offensive language or not. So what we're trying to go along this, yeah, okay, oh, sorry. And so to build these tools, what we've done is to get a socio-technical requirements. This has been done by us, but also other colleagues in the partnership. We have built the digital platform, and we will now proceed from this afternoon, actually, with some teachers, from Italian teacher, to co-create the solutions in order to make them fit to their world. What we've done also stems from our past experience that we have done in previous projects, and the basic lessons that we've learned in past projects, and I mainly refer here to one project that involved both all the group at FBK, is named CREEP, and it was run from 2019 until 2020, was that the best way to get some positive results in contrasting and fighting cyberbullying was to involve kids in the process, especially kids, and to gamify as far as possible the experience in order to have them engaged in the process. Otherwise, we wanted to avoid that one of the classical way to provide education, which is a bit boring, top-down frontal lesson. And so gamifying the experience was a way that we found were quite useful in order to keep them engaged. And the main idea was to educate and raise awareness, leaving as far as possible providing the tools to the kids for them to contrast the cyberbullying events themselves. Okay. And these are a few lessons learned that we have that refer to specific tools, and this is my way to leave the floor to Alessio and Federico. Some things that we've done in the past that didn't work quite well, or that did work well, but we wanted to improve them. One of the things that we did was, for instance, to create educational material, but to deliver it through cartoons, which is in red here in the slide, because the cartoon part was the weak link in the chain, so to say, because cartoons were not, cartoons left, as we discovered, teenagers as passive recipient of the information. They were not really engaged. They liked it, but they declined the use of the cartoon declined over time. Once you've seen it, and you don't want to see it anymore. So if the content has not passed through the cartoon, you don't want to see it anymore. And so we decided to do pretty much the same thing in a different way. Yeah, there's a mistake in the slide, sorry. Instead of cartoons, you should see, but picture it in your head, video game. So not in red, but in green in this time. So we wanted to do the same things that we've done, but not through cartoons, but through video games, and Federico will show you how. Yeah. The second examples I will give you, it's another thing that I like it a lot because it involved us a lot in the past project, was to create a way to make the cyberbullying experience felt and as a lived experience by the people who were not aware of what kind of feeling might raise being cyberbullying. Of course, there are people who experienced it, and it's a pretty bad thing, as I think the keynote from yesterday gave us a great example about that. But what we did was to create role-based scenarios so that people could experience cyberbullying by themselves, playing the role of bully, playing the role of the person who has been bullied, or playing the role of bystander. So we created an environment people could play the cyberbullying game with different angles in a protected environment where researchers and teachers were involved in creating a safe space where this could happen. And we made the simulation happening through WhatsApp, which is one of the, it was pretty obvious for us to use WhatsApp. Everyone uses WhatsApp, and WhatsApp, it's a medium through which people are bullied and people perform bullying activities. And we had to monitor the simulation. The problem with that was that it was very easy to use, but we ended up having some personal information as a phone numbers. For instance, I have like 200 phone numbers of minors in my records, which is not ideal, which was done for research purposes, but it's not scalable. It's not something that you want to do when you want to deliver this kind of intervention. And we also had, sorry, just 1 second. We also had parents in the loop, because sometimes the phones of the minors are monitored by their parents. So we might not want them having part in the simulation. And so we also have the sensitive material on WhatsApp. So what we decided to do was to introduce another tool, doing pretty much the same thing, using a tool that will be shown by Alessio, I think, Rocket Chat, which allows us to do the very same thing, but without collecting personal data, without having the possibility of controlling who's participating or not, and having the sensitive material not exposed. So these are bits of the lessons that we've learned and that help us to shape the tools that are part of the digital platform. And I'd leave to Federico and Alessio the floor to discuss and to present the tools.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Hello to everyone. I'm Alessio, and I'm the I will present the digital education platform in action. Oh, okay, it's okay now. Thank you. It's okay, it's okay. Can you hear me, right? We have four different tools. I will describe the first three, and Federico, who is a PhD student here in SPK, will describe the high school superhero tool. It's a sort of video game, very nice game. First of all, I want to show you Grinder. Grinder is a software that simulates the use of images that usually students use on, for example, on Instagram, on TikTok. Recently, most of the young users prefer to go on social networks that are based on images like Instagram or TikTok. Then the other one, like Facebook, that are based on text maybe or other kind of media. The goal of Grinder, this tool, is to recreate this environment and to increase the fact that maybe sometimes the young people want to be funny in commenting on in writing stuff on images, but sometimes indeed he or she is offending the persons, the people in the photos. Grinder is designed to study this phenomenon in a controlled environment. So we control everything. We usually we use photos that are taken from similar contexts, but from students belonging from very, very far communities. Usually we use photos from foreign countries, all public photos. I mean, we take photos from people who share them with the world, so, but are not taken from the community where the students who are involved in this task are involved. In general, for each photo, we ask the students, if you see this image on Instagram or TikTok or everywhere on the web, will you make fun of this picture? And the student can answer yes or no. Sorry, this is in Italian by mistake, but the platform is multi-language. And if the students answer no, another photo is proposed to the students. Okay. Otherwise, one can press yes, and the system asks him, why will you have fun with this picture? So, for example, for the clothes, for the pose, the expression, the location, and so on. And the student is asked to write what he or she would have written in this context. One of the activities in these tools is to collect some information that can be used by educators to discuss this topic, or also the students can be involved in choosing the images. So in collecting why this image should be part of this task, why this image can raise fun and so on. So it can be used in two different ways. The other tool is this one. This is a sort of social network monitoring tool. Differently from Kinder, this is to be used by educators mainly, and search for social network for real examples. So one can, for example, these are keywords extracted from hate speech against a religion. So, for example, closed mosques. And the system should search. Why isn't working? Okay, cyberbullying. You can also write any keyword here, and the system will collect all the tweets related to this topic and try to draw a chart where all the similar hashtags are included. So I put cyberbullying and I get rape, harassment, Kid Action Forum, wow. We are in, and so one can find information on the topic. Here there are the tweets related to the topic, and here the graph. And also there is a tag cloud of the keywords that are related to the topics he was looking for. The last tool, as described by Enrico, is Rocket Chat. As said, is a chat where one can create a scenario, a plot, and each student or each user, also educators can be in the flow, have a user that can be used only on this platform, so no personal data need to be shared between us, between the projects, the teachers, and so on. And this simulates another environment that it is very, very common in young people, but also in less young people. I mean, everyone use WhatsApp and similar tools. But similar to Grindr, this is a control scenario. And again, we want to recreate in this, with this tool, a situation where there is some hate speech or cyberbullying stuff against students. As said, we decided not to use WhatsApp anymore because of the need to share the phone numbers of the students. And with the Rocket Chat, we can, again, both collect how people will react on particular scenarios or plots that the educators can choose, and see, for example, which are the reactions, positive or negative, on insults or hate speech or people having fun of colleagues or other students. Okay, I think that's all. Federico will show this.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Federico Bonetti, and I'm going to show you briefly my serious game, High School Superhero, which I developed for Kid Actions and also as part of my PhD project. So here you can see the character creation screen, where users are basically given the opportunity to create an avatar with their own preferences. So in this case, I'm creating a little girl. And we added this feature. We wanted this feature as it is believed in the literature to foster identification and engagement, which we think is quite important in a game such as this serious game about cyberbullying. And so in this game, I am inserting my nickname. So once the character has been created, of course, the users are prompted with a tutorial that instructs them on how to proceed and how to perform the different tasks that they are given. In this case, I have skipped the tutorial for the sake of the presentation. The style of graphics that we are using is quite simple, but it is inspired by successful commercial games such as Animal Crossing, Fortnite, all games that use cartoon, simple, and round graphics. So I'll briefly show you the two tasks that users should perform. The two tasks consist of basically highlighting hateful content. So the main overall task is to identify hateful content in the two tasks that are presented to players. So in this case, for example, I see someone has written "You are a monkey" on the pavement. So what I want to do is erase it and signal the hateful parts as precisely as possible. Of course, a student may also decide to erase the whole sentence, but yeah, it is best if players focus on the hateful content. The other task is quite similar, except now sentences can be changed. So I can drop in conversations and see what the bullies are about to say to their victims. And thanks to a special power that is given to the player, I'm able to actually change what the bullies are about to say. So in this case, I may say, instead of "you suck," I may want to say "you are nice." So the bully realizes that they're saying something that they didn't want to say, and this is basically how the task translates into consequences for the virtual world. So the players can see in real time what happens when they act on cyberbullying attacks. So the idea of this game is also that of increasing, of simulating positive bystander behavior, since the player is a superhero that isn't directly attacked, but who is preventing attacks. So it tries to simulate positive bystander behavior, and also it tries to enhance the feeling of self-efficacy in ending cyberbullying attacks. So once sometimes players can be tired of performing the same task over and over again. So one possibility that we give to players is that of freely go around and explore the town and find power-ups such as rocket shoes that actually enable them to reach new areas where the tasks can be performed. Okay, so basically this is all I wanted to say. Of course, you see sample sentences here. They are not the final sentences that we're going to use, but one of the activities that can be performed with the young teens is that of creating content that then is fed into the game. So that's one of the activities that may be useful. Okay, so that's all on my side. I give you back your floor.
Let's go back to the slides. I think that now is Gareth. Gareth?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Gareth Court. I'm an online safety consultant for European Schoolnet and one of the co-authors of the educational toolkit for the Kid Actions project. Thank you, colleagues, for just sharing all the tools there. It's great to see them up and running and in action. Hopefully it gives you an insight as to how those could be used to help discuss and potentially tackle cyberbullying as well. So I'm going to talk about the educational toolkit that sits around those tools and tries to add some context and also tries to enable education and awareness raising and discussion around cyberbullying, particularly for those educators who maybe aren't quite so tech savvy or maybe don't want to try and attempt using the digital tools. It's worth mentioning that a number of the activities in the toolkit do closely align with those digital tools that you've just seen, but similarly there are activities that can be carried out completely offline in any kind of educational context. So the aim of the toolkit was to develop materials that would be suitable both for formal and non-formal educators, which is an interesting challenge because providing a toolkit for teachers is in some ways relatively straightforward. You can write the lesson plans or the activity instructions, provide all the resources, hand it over, and most teachers and educators will be quite happy to pick that up and use it however they see fit. However, for non-formal educators, that experience might be slightly different, and they may have not had many experiences of using activities in that sense. So what we're trying to do is to create a toolkit that works for both, that is accessible, that is not overly long, and has relatively short activities in it that can be picked up and run with the minimal of resources. So it could be using one of the digital tools, as you've just seen. It might be using some slides to guide a discussion. It might be printing out one or two resources, such as cards or a very simple worksheet to help guide it. But trying to keep resources to the minimal. I just conscious I do have some slides to go with this as well, just to help people understand the toolkit.
I'll ask if it's possible to put on the screen both my computer or his. Or you can share the slides by yourself, Gareth.
I can share screen if that's going to be easier. Yep, that's no problem. Let's share my screen, and then people can see what we're looking at. Here we go. So if I go back to presenting mode, there we go. Can you see that now?
Yes, yes.
Yep, fantastic, brilliant. Okay, so there we are. This will make a lot more sense if you can see the things on the screen as well. So, as I mentioned, it's intended for formal and non-formal educators, and that's really important that we make it work and accessible for both. There's a desire to try and make this toolkit as a single toolkit that tackles both of those audiences, because there's always a danger that if you produce a toolkit for teachers and a toolkit for non-formal educators, one group won't look at the toolkit that's for the other, when actually there may be things in the teacher's toolkit that non-formal educators could really get on board with and use and actually deliver really well. And similarly for teachers, they may just stick to their teacher toolkit and they won't actually have a look at the other side and see some other alternative activities that might work really well in their classroom. So the intention is to provide one toolkit for both audiences. That being said as well, though, there is another overlap within the toolkit in that there are two different age groups that we're focusing on with this project. One is ages 11 to 13, and then the older one of 14 to 19. And again, the intention is to not provide two discrete separate toolkits, but actually to provide activities where at the start of each activity, it's labeled or tagged as to whether or not this activity is suitable for any of those ages, or whether it's suitable for the lower age group or for the upper age group. And then that way, educators, whether they're formal or non-formal, can make decisions about which activities they want to pick and choose and use. Last aspect to consider, just as an introduction to the toolkit, is this need for addressing the issue of cyberbullying on different levels. And this is taken from other work that we've done in online safety over the years. This recognition that for young people, broadly speaking, there are sort of three layers, a little bit like an onion, if you like, and I'll show you a graphic a little bit later that helps demonstrate this. But this idea that when it comes to matters around the internet and staying safe, or just actually in general in safety in your own life, you always start with yourself. So if you think of the analogy of if you're on an airplane and if something really went wrong, God forbid, and the air masks come down from the out of the ceiling and you've got to put your air mask on, they always advise you to put your oxygen mask on first before helping someone else. So you prioritize your own safety. And that is what younger children naturally will do in terms of their life, online and offline, is that they would think about themselves first. And quite rightly so. It's important for all of us to consider our personal safety. But when it comes to the internet, particularly when it comes to issues such as cyberbullying, which involves other people, it's not enough just to think about ourselves all the time. We have to extend our thinking out a bit further. So up to about the age of 11, you tend to see a lot of online safety materials and resources talking about staying safe on the internet, often focusing on yourself and how you keep yourself safe. But even before the age of 11, children start to recognize that it's not just them online. You know, there are 4.5 billion users every day on the internet. We're all interacting in different ways, and there is a responsibility there to look after other people and to consider other people's feelings and behaviors as well. And so this is where we move into this element of the peers. And for many children, both at primary education and indeed at the start of secondary education, these peer groups start to grow and expand online. Given the last 20 months that we've had with lockdowns and everything else, young people probably more than ever before relied on the internet to engage in communication with their friends and family and other people they care about. So you always start with yourself, but then very quickly you recognize that there are other people around you. You have social spheres, online and offline, of friends, classmates, just people in your same school or your same town, your same village, family members, and you need to consider their actions online, their behaviors, their feelings, how you can support them, but indeed how you might be able to challenge them or call them out on behavior that might be unacceptable. What if a family member is a person doing the bullying online, not towards you, but to someone else you know? How do you try and tackle that? So it's this idea that it's not enough just to think about yourself. You have to think about the communities, the small groups that you exist in, but then you have to think this wider sense of scale. And the internet is a global community, as a number of speakers mentioned yesterday. It's not enough just to focus on initiatives in one country. It's to understand that the internet crosses national boundaries. And so you may be part of a community offline in terms of your school community or your local community, but you may exist in multiple communities online. You might be part of a gaming group or a clan. You might be part of a message board that talks about a particular interest or topic or hobby. You might be part of different groups on social media. And then suddenly you have to consider the well-being of people who you don't know offline in real life, who aren't school colleagues or school classmates or family members. They are people that you've met online through different purposes or shared interests. And so you have to start thinking about how you protect them, how you respond to them, how you consider their thoughts and feelings and behaviors as well. So that's where this transition kind of moves. And throughout the toolkit, there is this sense that we talk about safety and challenging cyberbullying and looking after yourself when it comes to cyberbullying, but then you very quickly have to move on to how you consider other people's behaviors involved in a cyberbullying situation. And the example activity that I'll show you in a few moments will give you a bit of insight into that. The other part of the toolkit was to place it around 3 key foci. This is based on other work that's taken place in the past in cyberbullying resources, both in the UK, where I'm based, and globally across Europe and further afield. But there is this general recognition that there are sort of three key stages, if you like, in understandings, in dealing with cyberbullying. One is the understanding aspect. So as you saw from a number of speakers yesterday, there is no shared definition of cyberbullying. It means different things to different people in different contexts. So there's definitely a place in the toolkit for activities to explore what cyberbullying is in the context of the young people that you're using the toolkit with. How does it affect them? What kind of platforms or games does it happen on? Who's involved? What are the possible outcomes or consequences of that? What are the motivations behind the behavior of people who choose to bully or are bullying others online? So understanding is a key part of this. As is, of course, then the preventative side, what we can do to actually prevent cyberbullying from happening in the first place. So as you can see here, just a couple of aspects that are explored in the toolkit activities of understanding your role in a cyberbullying situation. It could be that you're the target. Similarly, it could be that you are the bully. It could be that you are someone sitting on the side as a bystander. It could be someone who actually joins in and follows the bully's lead. So understanding your role and how you might behave in different situations is really important to understand what you might be able to do to change that response in a more positive way. And then there's also the aspect of managing conflict, the fact of when you see it happening online, how do you step in a meaningful way? When do you choose to step in? If you feel like you step in too soon, you could end up making a problem worse. There's always the danger, as we discussed yesterday, of some people feeling that they might get targeted by a bully if they try to step in to stop them from bullying someone else, even though in many cases that's not always the case. So there's this whole tranche of work here that can be done about managing conflict, and these are useful skills to apply in an offline context and outside of bullying as well. Understanding social dynamics and group dynamics and how people's relationships work in all different contexts is really, really useful. And I'll explain another aspect of the toolkit that covers that in a moment. And then the other big side of it, as Alex was so well putting it yesterday in his speech, which was fantastic, was talking about how you promote the positive. How do you change those norms away from some of the very negative things that some people mentioned yesterday that have come up in the research and their thinking? How do you push it towards a more positive norm online, where respect is the default behavior, where people treat each other with consideration and in many cases even kindness? What can we do to kind of push things and nudge things in that direction? And the Diana Awards anti-bullying ambassadors that Alex highlighted yesterday was an excellent example of one strategy that can be used to try and push things back in that positive direction again. The last one, and I've put it in bold here, is responding. And the reason I put it in bold is because the work that colleagues have done so far, particularly my colleague Veronica, who you heard speak yesterday, talking about research, she and colleagues did a number of interviews with experts, some of whom you're going to hear from a little bit later, with practitioners, so both teachers and youth workers, and surveys with young people themselves. And one of the key things that came back from all of those different audiences was the importance of having strategies for how to respond to cyberbullying if you're involved in a situation or if you see it taking place online. And I think that's really a key one, is trying to equip everyone with practical skills and advice and things that they can actually use in a cyberbullying context to try and make things better and try and potentially resolve a situation rather than just letting it go or doing something that might make it worse. So there's also activities in the toolkit that focus directly on responding. How do you respond in that context or this situation? What can you do to intervene that will have a positive outcome both for yourself and for other people? And where do you go to get help? If you can't fix this yourself and you don't think you can impact on this in a positive way, who can you turn to create that positive impact? And how can you be sure that the person you've turned to is going to do something that does have a positive impact and provides some effective support? So the proposal to the toolkit structure, and this is still under review, and we'll be asking teachers to feedback on this in the next few days as well to see if this is working for them too, is this idea that, yes, we need to start from this position of understanding what cyberbullying is. So if you're using this toolkit with your students or with a group of young people, you first need to establish what is cyberbullying and what it means to them. So there are activities in the toolkit to allow you to align that thinking together to understand what this issue is and how it affects the young people that you work with. And then as an educator, you've got an opportunity to think about, okay, so what are the issues here? What's affecting them? Why is it affecting them? What do I kind of want to focus on next? So step 2 is a chance for a practitioner to just have a bit of reflection based on what young people have told them so far as to what angle or what approach they're going to take when trying to educate them about cyberbullying. And then that takes you on to step 3 there, where there are multiple resources that you can dip in and out of. It's a toolkit. The idea is that you pick and choose the tools that work best for you and best for the young people you're working with. So if you feel that there needs to be a lot of work about prevention of cyberbullying online and raising awareness and understanding of that, then you can focus your efforts on those. If you feel that your students or young people are lacking those practical strategies for responding to cyberbullying appropriately in different contexts, then you can focus your attention on that. And similarly, there will be activities in there about how you can actually share this learning with others. So how can you empower other young people to do the same thing? And again, going back to yesterday with Alex's anti-bullying ambassadors, that was one example of a way of empowering a community and empowering young people to be able to take the lead and to be able to educate each other on what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior online and how you try to deal with this issue of cyberbullying. So similarly, there will be activities in this toolkit where if educators so choose, they can work with young people to give them a much stronger voice in terms of how they respond to cyberbullying and what could be maybe developed or put in place across a whole school or a whole community to try and affect some positive change. And then the 4th step, which can kind of take place at the 3rd step as well, but can be done afterwards depending on an educator's preference, is this idea of taking everything that you've learned and that your students or young people have learned and thinking about how you share that wider. So how are you going to communicate that to other people? It could be other teachers in the school. It could be, again, trying to raise awareness in peers. So how do you get it out to classmates and give them some practical advice and strategies? How do you communicate this to parents and carers and get them on side? And again, a number of speakers yesterday mentioned the importance of parents and carers in cyberbullying. Helping them to understand these issues and to provide effective support is a key way of giving power back to children and young people. And then there's opportunity at the end there to take it a bit further if you actually wanted to run a campaign offline in a school community or indeed in an online community in some way. So it could be using social media to post and share materials that students have developed, trying to start discussions with people to get them thinking about this further, and then a wider evaluation. How do you know if anything you're doing is actually working? So that's the idea of the toolkit in a nutshell. But as I mentioned, it is designed in a sense that people can dip in and out of it based on the needs that they have identified in the young people that they work with. Here's that onion I was talking about earlier. So another key aspect of this that we're trying to work into this toolkit is this recognition of the importance of social and emotional learning. And Alex, in his talk yesterday, mentioned the Selma Hacking Hate Toolkit that the Diana Award were part of, alongside ourselves at European Schoolnet. And I actually had the pleasure of being part of that project as well. And it was about helping students to understand what hate speech is online, but then also helping them to develop skills to actively and positively challenge it in a safe way. And a key aspect of that was social and emotional learning, understanding your own feelings and the way that you respond in different situations, and then being able to take that understanding and extend it to others. So in other words, being able to understand the thoughts and feelings and emotions of others and how that may motivate their behavior and how that might direct their behavior. The minute you're able to do that and able to understand your own feelings and the feelings of others, you develop empathy. And that could be, of course, empathy towards the person being targeted by cyberbullying online. But similarly, it could be developing empathy towards the people who are doing the bullying. Not in a sense that you're condoning their behavior and you're allowing that to take place, but that you're starting to actively consider why they're behaving that way. What is going on behind the scenes that's making them feel a certain way and act in a certain way? And the minute you start to develop any insight into those feelings of others, you start to be able to, if you wish, exert a level of control over that behavior. It sounds a little bit sinister, but it's not intended as such. But the idea is that the more you know about the feelings of other people, the more you can do things to try and manipulate that behavior. Now, of course, with the intention of this toolkit, the idea is to manipulate that behavior in a positive way. Similarly, if you know about people's emotions, you could manipulate it in a negative way. But we're very much focusing on positive manipulation here, so that if you understand why a bully is bullying and why they're behaving the way they are and what might be triggering that or motivating that, you might be able to do things to change their behavior. You might be able to do things to lessen their attack. You might be able to do things to reason with them. You might be able to do things actually to provide them with help and support if they themselves are a victim of bullying. So social and emotional learning is a key part of this. And at the center here, you can see the 5 core skills that make up this area: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And developing skills in any of these areas is fantastic, not only for dealing with online problems like cyberbullying, but for dealing with issues and experiences that you have in life. These are sort of the core building blocks. These are lifelong skills for anyone to develop. And the better your skills are in these areas, the better you can manage different social situations, not in a selfish way, but in a positive way that benefits everyone. The onion layers that I'm talking about, as you can see, are the rings that sort of go around the 5 core skills there. So you've got this idea of classrooms, schools, family and caregivers, and communities. And that broadly echoes what I said at the start, talking about self, peers, and community and society. The fact that things kind of move outwards as you go out from this center of considering emotions and feelings. So social and emotional learning is definitely a key part of this, and something we're trying to incorporate throughout all the activities as well. Here's an example of an activity, just to give you a bit of a frame of reference. So I haven't put in all the slides, but basically for every activity, there is a set of Google Slides with a number of key things. There is also a document that goes with it that provides further activity instructions. The slides are completely optional, but they're often a good way of guiding a discussion and a conversation. And where possible, all the resources that may need printing, such as cards or worksheets or other materials, have been incorporated into the slides. So it's quite a nice, neat little package. So just to run through this one example, and I've selected this because this activity directly ties into the Rocket Chat tool that was explained a little bit earlier, that as a suitable alternative to WhatsApp, and the reasons for that were already explained. So Rocket Chat is a great potential staging area online as an online communication tool to be able to explore different cyberbullying scenarios, and of course your role within those scenarios too. So the title of this activity is Exploring the Roles in Cyberbullying, and for every activity it gives an intended time. This one's a little bit longer because of the setup time and the explanation needed, so it's around about 35 to 40 minutes, possibly a bit longer depending on the needs of your young people. With everyone, it comes with several learning outcomes to give people an idea of what we're trying to achieve in this activity, some key vocabulary if needed, and then what resources are actually needed to run this activity. You'll notice on this particular activity, if you can see on the slides, obviously you need the Rocket Chat tool, so you need to get that set up in advance and configured properly. You need a couple of materials throughout the slides, but then there is also guidance to go along with this in terms of setting the stage and creating a safe space in order to run this activity successfully. And I'll talk about that guidance just after I've explained this activity. There's also, if you can see it there on the left, a slide of key questions. These are entirely optional. It's not an expectation that someone running this activity would ask every single one of those questions. If I'm honest, if you did, you'd probably be there for about 2 hours. But the idea is that an adult running this activity can familiarize themselves with those key questions and use it to guide the discussion. And actually, if they decided they didn't like this activity and they just wanted to have a discussion or a chat based on those key questions, that is a very valuable experience as well. And again, going back to Alex's speech yesterday, he was mentioning the importance of not only parents and carers, but other adults having discussions with children and young people around bullying and around their online lives, talking about the best bits, the worst bits, highlighting things that might happen in the news when an example pops up. What would you do in that situation? What did someone do well there? What mistake maybe did they make? that having that kind of discussion is incredibly valuable. So even if you chose not to use any of these activities, you may just want to have a discussion about different aspects of cyberbullying. And these key questions are a great way to guide that discussion and to gain some insight into what children and young people are thinking and experiencing with regards to cyberbullying online. This particular one, actually, once you've got Rocket Chat set up and you've established the ground rules for how you're going to use that in a safe and positive way, it then presents a number of different scenarios. There is an opportunity to write your own scenario or develop your own scenario with young people if you wish. And I've tried to make these scenarios fairly broad so that they can be explored in different ways. So just to pick out a few examples from the one on the slide here. One says, a young person has recently told everyone in their school that they belong to the LGBTQ plus community. Someone in their class starts to say homophobic comments towards them online. So we've got examples of something that may be constituting hate speech. We've got other examples where bullying is happening between people who are broadly connected. So another one here says, a new member of your youth group has just joined. They're quite shy and haven't revealed much about themselves. One of your friends starts to pick on them online for being different. And different can mean many different things. But you've got a situation here where it is someone known to you, a friend, bullying someone else known to you. So someone who's just joined your youth group. And then there are other scenarios where actually people who aren't known to each other offline may congregate online and conflict may arise. So we've got another one here. You've joined an online chat group to discuss your favorite music. Although you don't know anyone there, it's clear that a member of the group is being targeted because of their religious views. So again, introducing some potential protected characteristics that might form the basis for why bullying takes place. And potential protected characteristics that might form the basis for why bullying takes place. And as some speakers mentioned yesterday, there are definitely similarities between hate speech and cyberbullying. They are not the same thing, however, but it may well be that protected characteristics such as sexual orientation or identity or religious beliefs or views may form the basis for why someone may target someone else with bullying behavior online. So once you've established the scenario that you're going to use, you then dish out the role cards to the young people in the group who are taking part and get them to assume one of these different roles. So it could be that they are the cyberbully, and you may have one cyberbully or multiple ones. It could be that they are, of course, the person being targeted, that they are a bystander, that they are someone who's going to be an upstander who is actually going to step in if they see it taking place with other people. It could be others who support either the bully or the target, so being a cheerleader or an admirer or a follower. It could be someone who's just kind of in the mix to be antagonistic, like a stirrer. So if you think about your experiences online when you go to chat groups and other things that maybe you've used for communication online, there's often someone in there who's just in there to stir up trouble. They may not be doing it maliciously. They may just be doing it to have a bit of a laugh or a joke, but they sometimes are there just to mix the pot and to kind of trigger people and to get people to do or say the wrong thing, just for their own entertainment or amusement. And then finally, you may have someone who is there just literally as a joker, someone who just makes light of everything, who just makes fun of people or of themselves, but is just trying to inject a lot of humor into the mix without actually dealing with the issue at hand. So once young people have got this role, they can then actually have a go at role-playing this scenario through Rocket Chat by having a discussion, talking about things, putting the kind of messages that they would put if they were assuming that role, and then seeing how it plays out. And of course, the way it could play out could happen in lots of different ways. You want young people to be honest and to assume that role, but it's an interesting experiment in some ways as to how far young people would take this role if they are the cyberbully or if they are the target. So similarly, before starting this activity, there's a real need for setting things like a safe word, a word that everyone understands means that's it, end of scenario, we all stop now, so that you can help manage these situations and so that people don't get carried away and take it too far as well, which is the last thing we want to happen when we're trying to educate young people about the importance of challenging and preventing and responding to online bullying. We don't want them in themselves to actually be creating more cyberbullying scenarios as a result. And then the final thing you can see on the slide here is the importance of a debrief. So a number of activities such as this one have a real strong need here for actually wrapping this up and talking to young people after this so that they don't just finish the scenario on Rocket Chat and then go away and worry about it or stress over it or be upset by the things they've experienced, that we actually take time to bring them back together and talk about how this was just a scenario and a role play, that it doesn't extend beyond the classroom or the space where you've run this activity, how it made people feel, how people might have dealt with things differently, and giving people a chance to actually draw some conclusions on this and draw a line under this experience so they don't go away from this feeling worse than they did before. So there are a number of examples like that. This one obviously is an example that links directly to Rocket Chat. There is an alternative activity to this one that can be done purely offline. So it's the same principle, but doing it as a face-to-face drama and role play rather than using a digital tool. And as I mentioned, through that activity and a couple of others, there's a real need for educators, both formal and non-formal, to have some guidance about how to do this in the best possible way. So we've created some draft materials for educators covering things such as creating that safe space, setting those ground rules and expectations that students need to understand how they're going to tackle this in an educational context and how they're going to carry out these activities and take part in these activities in a positive and safe way. The importance of debriefing, as I've just explained. And also things like a technical debrief as well. So what you might need to do after you've finished using some of these digital tools. So it may be, for example, for Rocket Chat, if the young people you're working with have actually installed it as an app onto their smartphones, it may be asking them to delete the app if you're not planning to use it again in the future. The last thing you want to do is to let them wander off with a new communication app on their phone they haven't used before that's connecting them with other people in their class or youth group who they've never connected with before online, and actually then might then be creating a space where you've sent them off and other issues might occur outside of the classroom once you've left them. So a technical debrief is really important on this as well in terms of their own safeguarding too. And safeguarding and child protection is also featured in this document, understanding that because of the sensitive nature of cyberbullying, when you're exploring activities in this area, young people are very likely to talk about their own experiences or what they've seen online. And with that could come disclosures of either past cyberbullying or current ongoing cyberbullying as well. So it's really important for whoever's leading these sessions, either a formal or non-formal educator, to understand how to handle those disclosures in a positive way and what to do with those disclosures, how you take those forward, who you might need to report those on to get further help and support for that young person, and how you can provide help and support in your role as well. So that's the aim of the toolkit. So there's going to be multiple activities, a number of which align with those digital tools as were showcased earlier, but other ones that can be used purely offline. And the idea is that educators will be able to dip in and out of the toolkit for it to meet the needs of themselves and their students as well. And that brings us to the end. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but if anyone has any questions for myself or for my colleagues who showcase the digital tools, then we'd be very happy to answer them now. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for this very great presentation and some insights in the tools that the Kid Actions project will develop. If there are no further questions, I thank all the speakers, and I think we deserve a coffee break. For those who are on site with us, as you remember from yesterday, this will be served outside. And we're going to continue here at 10:50, so we do hope that everyone who is following us remotely will also take a short break and be with us at 10:50 when we will kick off with our stakeholder roundtable. As I said, we will have different colleagues from the civil society field, from industry, and also practitioners, and they will reflect on the tools that we have learned from just this morning. So thank you very much and enjoy your coffee. you in person. Good. Yes, because we have I will just say your name and then you can, or you sit already if you want. As to our Okay, welcome back everyone. Apologies for those who are joining us remotely for the slight delay, but we are blessed with blue sky and full-on sun in Trento, so it was difficult for us to come back inside. However, you won't be disappointed because we continue in full swing with a stakeholder roundtable. As I've mentioned before, we will now hear from different stakeholders representing civil society, industry, and also practitioners, and how the Kid Actions outputs that we heard about this morning will meet their needs, and also what they are doing in the field of cyberbullying. I leave you the floor to Enrico, who will be sharing the session on behalf of the Kid Actions Consortium. We also have Theodora with us and Claudia, who will be joining us on site. And we also should have a range of speakers joining us online. We have Lydia from TextGain, Laura Higgins from Roblox, Deborah from the No Hate Speech movement in Italy, Sara from COSPE, and Caridad from Obesos, as well as Angie White and Bill Howe from Stop Hate UK. I hope you can all hear us, and I will leave you in the safe hands of Enrico, who will be sharing the session.
Thanks a lot, and welcome to the session. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and the aim of the session is to gather some feedback on what we just presented in the previous session, but also to have some guidance on how to proceed. This is a very, we're exploiting your expertise for the purpose of the project, and we really want to thank you in advance for taking the time to join us today and for what you will say. We had this session sort of mirrors what happened yesterday. The session, I don't know if you all participated in the session yesterday, but the session that was chaired by Sarah that dealt with the research part of research on cyberbullying and hate speech, and this mirrors that same session with other stakeholders, which are even more relevant in my view, not to diminish the relevance of research on time. So first of all, I want to thank Tamara for organizing the session. She could not be here today. I think she's online, and she gave me everything I need to chair the session. So the first thing is I'd like to, I know you've already been introduced by by Sabrina, and I will organize the session will all be organized in three main parts. The first, I want to ask some of you, what's the situation in the field from the practitioner perspective? And I'll leave the floor to three of you for 5 minutes each. And I will start from the three people involved in this first part are Caridad Dalarson Sanchez, Dorothea Ricobono, who is here, and Bill Howe. I'll start from Caridad. So, what's the situation on the field? What are the struggles that you face in your everyday life? So, we'd like to know something about this. Yeah, I think you're muted. I think everyone can hear you online, but not here in the room.
Okay.
Okay, now we can. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So, from the perspective of a young activist, and I just recently went out of high school, and I've seen lots of things happening in my high school about the topic we're talking about today and the aim of the project. I've seen lots of people struggling with cyberbullying and with online participation in some like social media, for example. And the situation, it's really, how would I say that? It's really hard, and there's a lot of lack of knowledge about how to use online platforms and social media. And day by day, we're seeing more and more struggle of some kids that are struggling with this and with lots of cyberbullying mostly in social media, I would say, with the use of online platforms. I hope this answered to the question.
Yeah, it does answer to the question. I'd like to add a little more to you and to the next speakers. What are the needs? If this is the situation, what are the needs? What would you need as considering your role, your particular role?
Yeah, well, the needs of the kids and teenagers, like adolescents, like I am myself, the needs are learning and also support from, intergenerational support, instead of like, sometimes it's like, don't use social media because you're going to be bullied, or you're going to be just trapped in that social media, instead of just pointing out the negative things. It's more like pointing out the positive things you can do and the positive things that you can achieve by using online platforms, and the good practices on social media and online platforms is like, I've myself been using social media a long time, and when I struggle with social media or online platforms, the best help I get, it's by my parents, for example. They point out the positive things I can do instead of the negative things, and my needs are to be to the people outside to empathize with me. And I hope like empathy is one of the most important things, and not just like pointing out all the bad things you're doing, but like, like you can do this and it can get better. And also learning. I think learning and teaching the good practices is one of the most important things we can do, because this is a new thing for all of us. Like 14 years old using social media, or like TikTok or Instagram, it's a new thing. And it's like recently we're seeing more and more kids with mobile device or with a tablet or using all these new platforms, and we need to learn how to use them and how they really work. So learning and good practices is one thing I would really like to see in schools and high schools, and also teaching the parents how to teach the kids the good practices of the use of these new platforms.
Thanks a lot, Caridad. Sorry about putting off and on the mask. Since you said the word school so many times, I'd like to leave the floor to Dorothea Ricobono, who is here in presence, for the one who are here, physically present here. And I'd like to ask you the same questions. What are your perspectives and what are your needs? You are a teacher, so you have this particular perspective, quite different, I think, from someone as Caridad, who is on the other side of the blackboard. Please.
Sorry, okay. And in our school for years has been engaged with several activities to fight and to prevent all forms of discrimination. Since last year, my school obtained a certification, give a certification that is given to the school who follow a policy. A policy this policy includes some best practices that we some best practices, and these best practices are anonymous postcards that my school give to the students twice a year, one at the beginning, one in the middle of a year, a bully box where they can put the anonymous postcards in which they can report a case of bullying or cyberbullying, poster and at school where it's written what they can do if are victim or are witness of a case of bullying. And also for very important is a survey that we give to the students that give us a photo of the situation, because the survey we give this survey every year. And the results are very interesting because our students know exactly what does it mean, what's the meaning of bullying and cyberbullying. Know that they can talk with adults, parents, or teacher, and they know how to manage and to try to find a solution. The problem are in the place and in some moments of the school life, because this case of bullying and cyberbullying is occur in the way from home to school, in the break time, and in the gym locker room. So this is our goal from to the next year, just to try to find a solution for this moment. Anyway, this good practice are useful, okay? But in my experience, I think that what makes the difference is absolutely the discussion we have inside the class. When they talk, when they want to talk about these things. So when we manage these topics through readings and the daily dialogue, is very useful. Since last year, I have dealt to two cases of cyberbullying and bullying, and what worked was to engage immediately the management and the family, which fully collaborated. and also to discuss in the class about about what happened. My student, who was a victim of bullying, talking with with his classmates, these things make him no more alone anymore. At the other hand, I think that, okay, the school work with the students, obviously, but on the other hand, we have to work with the family, with the parents, because very often I meet parents that doesn't know the effects of the bad behavior of their child in social media, and they don't know what they can do to fight and to help us to fight to prevent these things. So I think it's very important to make a network between family, school, with in the middle the students, obviously.
Well, this it's very helpful for us, and I think okay, you've already tackled some of the needs, and maybe we can explore this a bit later. Before that, I'd like to involve Bill in the conversation. I think you have a quite different perspective, since you're, I mean, the first two speakers discussed the cyberbullying regarding platforms and schools. How is your perspective, since you're an helpline operator, and I think you deal with a broader context, I suspect? Same problem with the audio here. Can our guests online hear what Bill is saying? No, no one. We just wanted to make sure that the only man invited in the panel had to be silent today. And we did it. It's a great achievement, but the great news is that no one knows what's going on, so we're all lost. That's I think it gives a sense of belonging together. No one knows what's going on. Are you muted? No, no. You're not muted, so okay. No, you're not muted, so I think we need to move on. We'll catch up. I think we'll involve you in the conversation later when people here will realize what's going on. And so, okay, someone is online and can hear what. Just 1 second. Okay. I think I'll move to the next section, and then we will have Bill, and we will involve Bill in the conversation later. So I'll involve the next speakers: Deborah Barletta, Sara Ceretelli, Lydia El Kaouri, and Angie Wright. And with them, I'd like to discuss a slightly different topic here. And the idea here is to discuss how you were able to, in your daily practice, to transform hate speech with the counter narratives in order to make it how do you make it, and how can your achievement and experience be incorporated in practice every day, in everyday work? And I'll start with Deborah Barletta, which is here on site. Sorry.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but we cannot see you here.
Okay. I can see myself in the screen, so I hope everything is fine. And I'm really sorry not to be joining the son of Trent. I've been there, and it's a lovely city. And a big hug to everybody who's there and also online. I will also quote some of the things that have already been mentioned when it comes to contrasting hate speech, which is mostly the work that we do with the No Hate Speech Movement Italy and the group of young activists that I got the privilege to coordinate. A lot is done and that needs to be done when it comes to the root causes of what is hate speech. And what I think it's important to stress when it comes also to bullying and cyberbullying, and it's kind of the common factor, the intersection of these three phenomena that are similar, that we must not forget have their precise and specific characteristic, is what comes when it's the power imbalances that are behind hate speech, bullying, and cyberbullying. Because, and I'm very happy that the KID project tackled that when it speaks about the causes of bullying and cyberbullying, because it's a discussion that we need to have with young people at a very young age, which is also the target of this project. Because if we really want to empower young people and we want to have them be a key protagonist in our efforts, we also need to be able to trust them with the ability to understand and kind of acquire those knowledge of the complex issues that are behind this phenomenon. Because very much often we focus on the effect of these problems, on how they, what they cause on the young people and the victims involved, but also the perpetrators. But very, very rarely we have projects and initiatives that are seriously talking and openly addressing the issues at the base of this phenomenon. And this is what we try to do with our counter and alternative narratives. So we're basically asking questions to the people who follow us, to young people. Why do you think this happens? Are you sure this happened for this reason? Because if we want to have truly interactive products, truly interactive means, would they be platforms of activities in schools and in other settings, also non-formal ones, we need to start from asking the good questions. And we can ask them if we trust young people and their ability to reflect on themselves, on their roles, on the society, and how they can have a role in changing some narratives, some attitudes. Because that's what is happening. Very often now we have the mainstreaming of many, many subjects like gender identities. We have, the use of pronouns that I, personally, last year I wouldn't have even dreamed of, or discussion about migrations and the way in which we teach history. And very often our young people bring in these topics in their families, and they're not finding the right answers or even some answers. And what we need to do to give young people the role, and what we are trying to do, is to help them find the tools to find possible answer, not giving oversimplified and easy answer to complex questions, but first of all telling them that there are complex issues in which they are involved, not to make them feel oppressed by these problems, but telling them this is the situation you live in, we all have a role and we are in this together. And that's why also we focused a lot, and this came also from Garrett's presentation on the value of community. We saw that a lot during the pandemic. And my activist group is a perfect example of that. When we have young people helping and supporting each other, the online spaces are very, very good. Many gaming community helped many young people pass through these very difficult months. So let's reward, if we're talking about gamification, let's reward these spaces, these efforts of finding and building community, supporting each other. So avoid oversimplification and polarization. Perfect examples, is it right to talk about gender identity in school or is wrong? No, let's discuss about it, open up questions, dialogue, ask questions to everybody involved, family, young people, institutions, and show that we can tackle this together, but we need to be ready to ask the right questions and be open to questions also ourselves as practitioners, youth workers, educators, and showing young people that, you know, there is not power imbalance also among ourselves. So my 2 cents is that, you know, also in our practices, in the way in which we approach this, we can show the change, and not being vertical, but being open, showing that, you know, we need to you know, face change together. And, you know, we saw that it can happen very, very fast. And, you know, we need to be optimistic that it can happen also in positive measures. So that's my feedback on that. And I'm very curious to hear the other speakers on this topic. And thank you again.
Thanks a lot, and we're very curious to hear the feedback on of other speakers, of course, and I will involve Sara Cerretelli in the conversation. So you can, of course, bring your experience, or also build on what Deborah already said.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Sara, and I'm project manager at COSPE, an NGO based in Florence. COSPE has been working on hate speech since almost 2014 and carry out several projects which explore the issue from different points of view. Many of these projects were addressed to young people in formal and non-formal contexts and aimed at preventing and combating hate speech using different methodologies. In the previous session, you illustrated the very interesting tools that you implemented in the Kid Actions project and talked about gamification and serious games. And that's exactly what we did in our project, Play Your Role, whose aim was to explore the relation between the gaming world and hate speech, and to act in the prevention of hate speech, helping young people in the development of their critical thinking, motivating them as active players against hate speech. We started from an assumption. Video games represent one of the most influential media in popular culture, and interacting in a gaming community is part of everyday life of most of the teenagers. Through a research, we wanted to explore to what extent youngsters are exposed to hate speech while playing video games, but also to explore the positive potential of video games as educational tools. In this sense, we think that it's crucial to identify and analyze the presence of hate speech and stereotypes in video games, in communities and in gaming platforms, because young people's understanding of the video games world represents, in our opinion, a huge influence in their behavior and in the way they manage conflict. On the other hand, teachers and educators often consider video games as the devil. On the contrary, they can be excellent educational tools in our opinion. They are capable of focusing and motivating young people to acquire some skills based on cooperation and to acquire new interaction modalities. So we believe in the positive potential of video games. They can provide safe places of confrontation, reinforce and reward positive behaviors. We think that good playing habits can be considered safe and can have a positive impact on behaviors and learning. And moreover, games are entertaining, so they can raise youngsters' attention in a very effective way. So there is a great space of action in this kind of approach, because the problem of hate speech in video games is not tackled at the moment, and teachers and youth workers need educational tools that can help them in guiding young people in this world. in our project, we created two kinds of tools with this objective. A toolkit with 15 educational itineraries that approach the issues of hate speech from different points of views, focusing on different aspects, increasing empathy, reinforcing correct and responsible behaviors, reflecting on stereotypes, analyze and deconstruct the presence of hate speech in mainstream video games, etc. We created also 4 serious games and 2 urban games, which were created in the framework of an hackathon with teams of young game designers from 4 European countries. And each game approaches the topic using different methodologies. We created also 6 additional itineraries which incorporate these games in order to make them more usable for teachers and educators. And these are our educational materials. They are freely available for everybody who is interested. They can be downloaded from the website playyourrole.eu. And I think that my time is up, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah. I think that we will explore later the idea of using video games, but it's also reassuring to know that there is a positive feedback regarding the use of video games for cyberbullying, since this is one of the things that we've decided to do in our project. And as I said, we will discuss this later on with other participants to the round table. I'd like to involve in a conversation about how to build counter narratives in everyday tackling of cyberbullying, involving Lydia El Khoury, which should be.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for this invitation. As the agenda says, I work with TextGame, which is a spin-off for the University of Antwerp in Belgium. And we basically use AI for good. But full disclosure, I'm not a techie. My background is activism, advocacy for over 20 years. But I think it's increasingly clear there's a really important role for AI in any of our endeavors. And I think that was mentioned yesterday. Some people were more positive than others about the role of AI, but I think everybody agrees there has to be a human in the loop. And I don't just mean at one point, but throughout the process. And I'd like to talk about our annotation process as an example. We have over 40 annotators working across Europe at the moment in the 24 working languages of the European Union. And they're building a bank of words that are going to be used to scrape over 20 social media platforms for incidents of hate and disinformation. And when I say platforms, it's not just the mainstream Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but darker places on the web. And when we engage annotators, it's a very personal process. It's not simply setting somebody off on the tool that we've developed. We give them an induction. They usually come from a background of either civil society, linguistics, hate speech, and then we work regularly and consistently with our annotators to make sure they're aware of trends that are happening online. So, for example, we have an annotation clinic every Friday where we get together in English with as many annotators as are available to attend, and we talk about trends that they're seeing online, new words that are cropping up, new hashtags, so that the annotation tool and the lexicon is as vibrant as social media and as dynamic as social media, because I think we all saw last year in the pandemic how things just changed in the blink of an eye, and we have to keep up with that. So, I mean, the kind of things that we learned is what conspiracy theories are trending, making our annotators aware of up and coming conspiracy theories so that those words are included in the annotation tool. And this helped us understand, for example, that in Bulgaria, the QAnon conspiracy theory isn't taking traction, but conspiracy theories tend to concern Norwegians who are accused of stealing children, taking them on trains and bringing them back to Norway, which is quite an aberration to the rest of Europe. So I think tools that we've developed are similar to the second tool that you showcased this morning, which really looks fantastic. So I think it's really important in that tool to tap into the vocabulary that 14 to 18-year-olds are using to make it current, vibrant, and up to date. And that tool is part of a European Commission funded project that we're working on, which is called the European Observatory on Online Hate. I got a few more minutes to talk about a second project because I think there's some interesting learnings from that.
Yes, please go ahead. Yep.
Great stuff. So the other project I wanted to just mention is called Detect Then Act, and the dashboard, which is central to Detect Then Act, is similar again to the second monitoring tool that you showcased this morning. And the idea of it is to provide a dashboard to volunteers. We call them upstanders. These are people who organically want to do something about hate speech on social media. They don't have a background necessarily, they care. And we gave the upstanders this tool, and we tapped into them regularly through meetings, online webinars, to hear what they wanted and what they needed. And I think some of the learnings that we came out with from that might also be valuable for this project. So for example, we heard that anonymity was key. So upstanders, contrary, I think a lot of people think upstanders necessarily kind of want to meet hate head on. That wasn't our experience. Actually, they wanted to do something about hate, but they didn't necessarily want to engage in conflict with the haters. So we developed tools to allow them to do that while maintaining their anonymity and not having to share their profile. So they could log into the dashboard, respond to hate, report hate to social media platforms without revealing who they are. And I think that anonymity is really important. And I think focusing on the positive instead of the haters is also a really, really important part of it. We had a campaign on the 30th of April 2020, and the tone of it was what upstanders were telling us in 5 different languages, in French, German, Hungarian, Dutch, and English. They were telling us that they didn't want to engage with the haters. They didn't want to engage with hate. They just wanted to actually forget it was even there and just focus on spreading positivity and happiness. So we called our campaign One Day of Online Happiness, and brought together over 200 upstanders from across Europe. Over 30 civil society organizations joined forces with us and helped us just to have 24 hours of positivity online, push back on hate, and create new narratives that simply don't even engage with any of the hate or negativity online. And interestingly, you mentioned this morning about a debrief, and our monthly webinars were that. It was a great opportunity to meet and discuss what you were experiencing. And it comes back again to the human in the loop. You know, we need to talk, we need to speak, we need to share experiences at every opportunity. But they're just a few learnings that might be of some help to your current project. But the three tools you showed this morning look really fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Lydia, and yeah, thanks for the final comment, of course. And I particularly appreciated the fact that you mentioned the annotators and all the hard work that gets black boxed when you have a technology. You see the technology shiny, and you know, everything is great, and you don't think about who has been hardly working on it. And thanks, I really appreciate it. As a social scientist, I really appreciate that comment. And I'd like to move on and ask the same question about counter-narrative, hate speech and discrimination to Angie Wright. I've heard that you might have some issues with your audio. I hope not. Angie, are you with us? We can see you, but we cannot hear you. You look muted from my screen. Okay, can you unmute your microphone? You have. Can someone online, not on site, hear Angie? No. No one can hear you, so we decided to boycott Stop Hate. It looks like we decided that we've invited you. We do not want you to speak, really. I don't know how we managed to do this, but sorry, can we make a test? Bill, can you try to speak? Because you don't look muted to me.
You hear me now?
Well, we can hear you, so maybe, okay, maybe we can, okay, we can let Bill talk and maybe we can solve Angie's problem in the next few minutes. So going back a bit, you can build on whatever has been said, but if you could bring us your experience, that would be great, Bill. Thanks.
Well, I think we're a bit different to some of the organisations. We provide third-party reporting services, and that can be via telephone, internet, chat function. We also have a dedicated service just for young people. So one of the things that I would raise as a cause for concern is just under-reporting and under-usage. I see lots of evidence online myself from my own activity, but these are not being reported to us as organisations. So from our perspective, I think we're really enthusiastic about what we've seen so far today. And another aspect of what we do as an organisation is we do a lot of work around awareness raising, and we do work in schools. So I'm sure that Angie, as our prime educator, will be able to utilise some of the tools. In the break, she was already asking me, about availability, which I think is a sign of the level of enthusiasm. I think I'm lucky that I've also led a number of projects. So I've got a lot of experience of supporting and training volunteers. So I chime with what Lydia's just said around people don't always want to focus on the very negative aspects of internet usage. So sometimes a positivity campaign is exactly a way to engage, particularly younger people. I've done a lot of work around counter-narrative, and I'm still in a position where I can't really answer the question, are we making any difference? Yes, I can point to evidence of where we may have influenced an individual, but the sheer scale of the problem means that we also need to work in partnership with academics, with researchers, to look at technological solutions as well. I'm improvising now, so I don't know whether people want to help me focus a little bit. I apologise for all the technical problems we've had as well. But I must say that Teams is my least favourite of these conferencing options. And this is a regular occurrence. I think it's, to use technical terms, I think it's driver conflicts with sound drivers. So I had to go out and reboot my computer as a way of solving the problem. So I apologise that I've missed some of the input from my colleagues. So yeah, real concerns around under-reporting. So really pleased to see work around that in the tools that you're generating. I'm really positive about what I've seen. I really like the fact that users, people who are going to use the platform, are included in the tools that you're developing. I think as well, for me, it's really heartening to see, not just in the presentations today, but also the thread from yesterday, that this is a whole society problem. So looking at ways to go from the individual to the local, to the community, to the national and the international, and accepting that the internet covers all of those things, which means that, we're presented with real challenges as professionals working in different areas. I'll shut up for a second and let somebody else get a word in edgeways. But
Thanks a lot. Before leaving the floor to Angie, thanks a lot for your beautiful presentation. I think you stressed in a very nice way the fact that no one can tackle with this issue alone. You cannot do it on a human basis. It exceeds the workforce needed to tackle it. No, but as building on what has been said also yesterday during the keynote, not even algorithm can do it by themselves. Not family can do it by themselves. No, the schools. It's a complex issue because all the stakeholders need to cooperate together, and and also this creates a lot of gray areas. Who needs to intervene here? Is it the algorithm or the family? Of course, but I think you gave a great picture of what are the challenges and what can be done. I'll leave the floor to Angie. Can you? Hoping that we can hear you now. No. I was positive after hearing Bill speaking, but no one can hear. Can someone hear Angie from online?
No, I can't hear her.
No. Let's try to do the same trick we did before. We'll leave a little bit time. We will involve other people, and then we'll try to come back to you maybe in the final session. Is that all right? Mm-hmm. So I'll get to the third part of So the third part of this session, when we talk about something that has already been tackled by Sara and Sara Cerretelli. Game and gamification. It's a very nice thing. I'd like to involve here especially Claudia Matera and Laura Higgins. But before involving Claudia, who is here on site first, I think it's nice for people my age that games are getting a revenge. When I was a kid, playing video games was bad for you, and now we're on the driving seat now. We're the generation that was on the driving seat, so we're making gaming like an educational tool, which was something that would scare our mothers. But so I'll leave the floor to Claudia and then Laura to discuss this issue. Please.
Thanks, Enrico. Hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting me and us. I work at All Digital, which is a network based in Brussels, and we're focused on enhancing digital skills. That means to support everyone in Europe to have access to digital education, whatever it might mean. Digital today means everything, honestly, if you think at it. Think at now. We have people on site, online, and we are discussing about things. So we are working, of course, also on the topic of this forum and cyberbullying, hate speech. We are working at that at European level with other partners, and also personally also I'm working on a huge project on cyber crimes more generally. It is called Rayuela, which is R-A-Y-U-E-L-A, and it is an Horizon 2020 project where we are developing a video game for, very similarly with the other projects you're all mentioning, to support 11 to 16 years old young people in understanding how it could be that they might become victims, what is the situation that they might face, how could they prevent and protect themselves, basically, in case they face that situation. At the same time also, how can we support teachers and parents, so adults in that sense, to start that conversation and also lead that conversation in a kind of safe environment. This is a sensitive kind of topic, so it's crucial to put in place a safe environment where young people can feel that they can share and can be supported and not judged at any moment. So thinking about, and as Enrico was saying, of course, gaming is not something that anymore we can consider for kids, honestly. We might not say that, but we all play, and potentially not with video games, you know, the last immersive ones, but we might play with cards, we might play with board games at Christmas time, for instance. So still we have that sense of using a tool and take part of that experience and share that experience with the others that are playing with us. So games in that sense is an experience, and if you think at that, also education is an experience. And when we go to school, it is a social kind of an experience because it's not just alone, but at the same time it's also kind of a one-to-one situation where you challenge yourself in understanding why you're not succeeding in that task, why that math, for instance, work in that way. So just to say that games and education is similar, much more than what we think. And recent studies also are supporting this point. From the experience that we are having, we're working in Raiuela, but also personally, because in my past, I have to confess, because I'm a passionate of games in general, so I designed a lot of games, and I would say all of them with educational purposes. And so I research on the combination, in a way, of these two aspects. A point that I feel to share, in a way, that might be relevant, is that the main part is to have a clear goal of the game. What is the learning part there that we want to reach with that experience? And structure feedbacks within that to make sure that someone was mentioning to be rewarded, which, of course, having a positive feedback, information to say that this is the best behavior, or this is an acceptable, nice, correct behavior, in any way, with visuals, colors, audio, it's fine, because, of course, is going to reinforce that aspect. I mean, you all know those aspects from psychology, Skinner, for instance, I mean, just to mention. So keep also in mind that that feedback is the one that is going to reinforce the learning aspect. It's also stimulating, reflecting what is the what is wrong there, or to explore also your behavior. So the one of the gamers, of those that are using that game, for instance. Why my first choice, for instance, if I have 3 options, why have I decided that one rather than the other 2s? And what I was thinking, for instance, or what is my understanding that? Which is also what we try to do with the raising awareness, for instance, kind of an activities. We don't know, and yesterday also it was mentioned the background that might be really diverse. Now, a good thing is that we are facing diversity much more, and to make sure that we are including all of that, the social backgrounds, but also educational backgrounds might be different. And yesterday we were hearing the testimony about cultural differences, that clashes. So all of those aspects might be included into that game, and at the same time into that conversation that is also relevant to this topic, so to cyberbullying and cybercrimes. Because studies also that we, within Raiuela, projects that had been carried out by the other partners. Just to mention, we are 17 partners, as said, is a huge project. And they are all psychologists, criminologists, but also law enforcement authorities, so the police. So from the data had been shown that the reasons why, it seems that the reasons why behind cybercrimes are differences, I would say. So it could be a cultural difference coming from another ethnicity, or it could be because there is a gender kind of difference, all those aspects. And in both cases, I mean, the victims and the offenders, they are fragile in that moment, and they, both of them, both sides, there is support to be provided. So, and to close that, gaming, and because it is something that more or less we all do, we are familiar with that, and can engage, and at the same time can reflect, can support the reflection, is a tool that matches really well with the learning and educational outcomes.
Thanks a lot. Very important presentation, and I really appreciate it a lot. And I'd like to, maybe we can discuss it once we have also Laura in the loop. And please, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. I do feel for my colleagues. It's so challenging when the tech doesn't quite do what we want, but I'm hopefully we'll all get to have a say by the end of it. But hello everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and join this amazing panel discussion today. I'm Laura Higgins, Director of Community Safety and Civility at Roblox. Before I came to Roblox, I actually worked with several of the people here who were involved in this conference. I was previously the operations manager at the UK Safer Internet Centre. So I've worked on both sides. I really do understand the difficulty of managing some of these issues. I was involved back many years ago in a lot of these discussions and supporting educators and young people who are victims of both harassment and online hate. So I brought that with me, I brought that learning and thinking with me into my role at Roblox. So hopefully we might be able to talk a little about how that's influenced the work and the things we do at Roblox. And really, really grateful to hear some of the insights from my colleagues here right now. So particularly Sarah talking about, the positives of using video games in education. For me, again, that's wonderful. And that's part of the reason I joined Roblox 3 years ago. So for those of you who maybe don't know what Roblox is, it is a fully user-generated content platform with millions of different experiences, all created by these very, very talented developers all over the world who create content and then enable others to come and experience those spaces together with their friends and socialise. We currently have over 47 million daily active users. Around half of the community on Roblox now are actually over 13, so we're aging up. We still have a lot of younger people on the platform. For some, it is their first experience into a space where they can come and hang out with their friends and socialise and perhaps go to visit pop concerts and fashion shows and play games and have fun together. But actually it is really we're seeing the community growing up and we're sort of working around some of those issues that brings, which are obviously very relevant to the conversation today. In terms of the educational side to Roblox, so as I said, everything on the platform is user generated. So there is a huge amount of learning that has to happen for people to understand how to do that within the platform. So we actually have a Roblox education team dedicated to this. They're all ex-teaching professionals themselves. They are there to support schools, educators all over the world. We work with coding camps, all of those sorts of platforms. We have something called Roblox Studio, which is where people come in and they can learn everything from the most basic game design, drag and drop type models, right through to really quite technical coding skills. We have had people on our platform who've started out right at the beginning, very young, learning the basics of the game, now who have studios with 25, 30 staff being employed who are running full-time game businesses. So we're really proud to have supported that journey for some of them. So one of the things that we have recently announced, which we're really, really proud of, is the fact that, we're already there. We're providing this technology and the teaching that goes around it to teach young people coding skills. We run regular creator challenges. We have something called Build It, Play It, which encourages young people to really get hands-on and share the experiences they create. But we really now want to lean into this and amplify the work we're doing. So we currently have set a new goal that by 2030 we want to support 100 million students learning on our platform. Now obviously that's a huge number. We need to be equipping those educators all over the world with the different learning environments that can bring those experiences to life and bring that content to life. Within Roblox ourselves, we want to be able to provide a bit of an ecosystem of experiences, everything from the curriculum that they might need, helping them with teaching some of the online safety and digital literacy skills that are needed to go alongside those kind of more technical coding and STEM skills that are needed. And so, you know, we're really building that out. There's going to be some very interesting things coming soon. We've also launched something called the Roblox Community Fund, which we're starting out with a $10 million fund, basically to bring really, really high quality educational experiences into Roblox to support the educators who are using Studio. So we've chosen 3 projects that we're launching first. One is with First and Filament Games, who are launching something called a virtual robotics program, where they will learn everything that they need to know, both within the game environment, but about robotics. Then we have Project Lead the Way, who are going to be teaching STEM and looking at STEM careers, and they're reaching about 250,000 kids and teens. And then the final project we're funding first time round is for the US Science Museum, who are doing a project called Destination Mars. You can probably imagine the sorts of content that that's going to be covering, but we really just wanted to provide things that will help teachers to bring those experiences to life, so they're not just telling children about places around the world. They can actually physically, virtually take them to these places and show them, so that young people can learn in those creative ways. The background, very briefly, I know time is very short, but Roblox was created for young people. It was initially a project, something called Knowledge Revolution. It was a classroom tool that was used for physics lessons. So it was actually created for young people and around young people. So safety, all of those things were actually right at the core right when it was launched. And it was also created with educators in mind. That was a very interesting thing. It basically enabled young people to do these physics experiments that they couldn't do in real life. What happens if you drop a car off a multi-story building, for example? What actually we were seeing is the creativity that young people were using outside of the classroom when they were still playing on the platform. That basically was the start of Roblox. So we created something where their imagination could run wild, that they could create anything that they could think of, essentially, using the tools that we gave. But that same safety, the fact that, thinking about the fact that, being anywhere online, there is a potential risk to young people. We carried those same safety tools and thinking with us through Roblox. So it really is in our DNA. I'll possibly have a moment to talk about this a little more, but my role specifically there around civility and community safety is around equipping the whole community. So the kids and teens who are on the platform, their parents, the educators, law enforcement, policymakers, and safety partners and colleagues all over the world to understand how our platform works, to make sure that people are confident in using the tools on the platform to tackle these difficult issues if they arise, hopefully to try and persuade people not to use some of this negative behavior as well. My civility work is about encouraging that problem solving, teamwork, how to resolve conflicts appropriately, those sorts of things, the life skills that they need outside of the online world, but hopefully bringing them online as well. And then, learning, educating, amplifying those messages. The final point being that, I thought it was beautiful when you were talking about really getting in and talking to young people. That is so important to us as well. So I have a sounding board of teenagers from the US and the UK who I talk with all the time. We have Discord channels where they can ask me any questions about safety and civility. They can talk to me about things happening outside of the Roblox platform that might be worrying them, or trends that they're seeing. And we talk to them about things that we're thinking about releasing, about new safety tools and things. We can actually discuss those with them. It's a really helpful way for us to get a feeling for a temperature check of what's really happening for the community. Roblox is a very safe platform. We have really stringent filtering and things like that. But we appreciate that when our young people leave Roblox, they're still online. They're using all of these other platforms. And we really want to have an understanding of what life is like when they step outside Roblox. Is there a way we can support them are there some skills we can teach them that they can take with them onto these other platforms? So that's something I'm really proud of, which will continue to grow. And we also run surveys and research projects. We've recently just done one with Internet Matters here in the UK, where we just did a qualitative study over 3 days over the summer holidays with 19 teenagers. Again, just tell us about your online life. What do you like? What do you not like? How is the community for you? When you're creating, what is that experience? What's the good and what's the bad? And it was just a way for us to share some of that learning with parents, really. Like, this is what your teenagers really want you to know about what's going on for them right now. We will continue to do those things. It's a really helpful way for us sometimes to frame some of these difficult topics we're talking about today, because if you're hearing it directly from the community, then we know that we're trying to tackle them in the right ways, rather than us just as older adults who've maybe worked in the field a long time, assuming that we know how we can fix these things for our community. But thank you very much. I know I've spoken for a long time now, so I should pass over to the others.
Thanks a lot, Laura. I really appreciate this, and I just wanted to involve you again a little bit, and also Claudia. You both gave us I saw Claudia nodding when Laura was speaking, so you agree on what each other said, and I think this is a very interesting presentation of what the potential of gaming and gamification in the tackling cyberbullying. So the bright side perspective is clear. Let's take a walk on the wild side. On gaming platform, there is cyberbullying going on. How do we tackle cyberbullying? Just the flesh. I know. I assume that doesn't happen on all digital, but it might happen on Roblox. What can we do to tackle cyberbullying happening online? Just the flesh, if we can. I'll start with Laura, with Claudia. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, in all digital is not happening, but just because we don't have a dedicated platform. But it's something that we can see if, for instance, moving into, let's say, the gaming industry, toxic behavior, this is how it's called. It's something that unfortunately happened. And I might mention, for instance, an example that is within the game League of Legends. And Riot Games, which is the company that developed it, they then put it in place, psychologists and a team, to understand how this is happening. Why? Because of course it wasn't foreseen from them, of course. And what kind of measures or features or inputs to prevent that. And what they have done, just to share as an example, was to change some features of the game itself. So someone that wasn't acting, wasn't sharing, so behaving correctly, let's say, in a nice way, and the others were raising that issue, was put on hold, literally, from the game. And an investigation was in place to understand how this happened, why, and what to do next, and kind of structure, kind of a behavioral, let's call it in that way, kind of rank in a way, where you can conquer a badge, so be rewarded in that sense, awarded for your positive behavior and correct behavior, for instance, and to stimulate that positive kind of wave within behavior. So it is something that maybe in a way it's not foreseen, but maybe as if we think at, our everyday life, we can witness the similar things on streets, on everywhere we go, unfortunately, honestly, but still it happened. And so if we think of it as a kind of a cultural aspect that is in place, maybe we might think at what kind of actions we might do, also in places that, of course, is not foreseen, because we want them to be safe for purpose, and think about what, in case these happen, what can we do? How can we tackle that with, of course, conversations and support, but also with actual actions, as in that case within the game, to put the player on hold and add other features to allow that specific conversation.
Thanks a lot. Laura, can you share some thoughts about this? Okay.
Yeah, of course. So for us, obviously, we do have a duty of care for everybody on our platform. So one of the things we think about is around how many tools and educating around the use of those tools. So very simple things like the block function, actually encouraging people. We know that whilst block is really powerful, and as adults, we might feel confident using it, particularly younger kids, they feel a bit mean doing it. They almost feel that they're participating in a bullying action themselves, as opposed to it being an empowering tool. So having that conversation about why and when it's appropriate to use it, I think is really important. We have reporting function throughout the platform. So kids and teens can report people who are being mean. They can report inappropriate content, they can report inappropriate games and names, visual assets, those sorts of things. We pre-moderate any audio and video files that are uploaded into any of the games before they're allowed on the platform. So there is also a process that goes on there to avoid, particularly around hate speech, and some symbolism around that is really important, that never makes it onto our platform. We have zero tolerance for this kind of behaviour, and so we want to be very clear to our community that we will support them, that if they do report something, that we are going to take action on it. We also have really strict chat filtering on the platform, so young people can't share personal information, they can't talk about where they go to school or other social media platforms that they're on, but we also update the actual, in terms of harmful speech and any bullying speech, that is being updated all the time. It is 24/7 moderated all over the world in different languages as well. And part of our work with our safety partners is about making sure we understand nuance. This is more than just a US and UK platform that we might know some of the jargon or the phrases that are being used. We want to understand what is happening in Italy, what is happening in Iran, or in Asia, and it's really important that we have those conversations. So we're updating those filters all the time, really, to try and stay on top of those things. But mostly it is about empowering young people to feel that they can stand up for themselves, for those around them, and help create these really healthy and positive communities. One of the things with having so many millions of different experiences on the platform, is we have to support the developers who make these spaces as well. One of the things they learn very quickly is if using that word toxic, if the space is a bit toxic, the people will leave and they will take their friends with them, and very quickly that experience will become really unpopular, and then that's their learning. So it's actually in their interest to create these spaces that encourage positivity, positive teamwork and collaboration. They tend to do much better.
Thanks a lot, Laura, and thanks again for stressing the idea that we need to cooperate. We need an alliance between humans and technology to tackle the issue. I think Caridad has left, and so thanks for joining us. I know you have other duties, and I want to thank you for having been with us so far. Hello. And I think Angie, we couldn't fix the technical problem from Angie, but I think she managed to find a way to share some thoughts with us through the chat. So I'll ask the people who are working there to share what. Okay, I hope you all can read what Angie said, what Angie wrote.
If I just can I make a comment?
Yep.
I think one of the things Angie's stressing, and one of the things I've picked up from Laura's input just a moment ago, is the need to provide users with adequate feedback. I think, if we are in the business of encouraging positive behaviour, and people understand why that's important for society and the preservation of equality in terms of rights, it's also important that the platform providers give people an indication of what's going to happen if I do this. If I report something, what's going to happen? What are the implications for me? What are the outcomes likely to be? people need to be informed before they take action, but they also need to know that that action has a result. And I think one of the things that I've experienced both as a user and as a professional practitioner is quite often a sort of absence of what happens next in terms of feedback. And I see that as a deterrent for that continuation of positive behaviour. If I report something and nothing happens, I'm less likely to do it again. And I think that's one of the things that we pick up constantly when we work in schools and we have interactions with young people. And I'm sure that other people in the audience have similar experience. So it's very positive to listen to Laura talk about the importance of providing that communication, which is a two-way process between users and developers and the people that run the platforms. End of my comment.
Thanks a lot. I think it helped to provide a bigger context to what Angie said, and I think they did a very good job on presenting something that it's often neglected in the literature. The fact that when you report something, you're reporting against someone, and that someone is someone who might be relevant for you, or even talking to a parent about what happened, or to a school teacher. It means that that's reporting is just a part of a bigger relationship, and you're thinking about the bigger relationship. So we need to be addressing the bigger picture whenever we address cyberbullying. Thanks a lot for your comment, and also for being creative in delivering it. But I think we've all become experienced in finding new ways to overcome the issues related to using platforms over the last year and a half. To finish this panel, which has been very interesting so far, I'd like to a couple more comments to whoever wants to intervene in the last 10-12 minutes to address the elephant in the room. So we know that a lot of the work needs to be done by big companies that run platform or also have video games, and they need to do something, and of course it's difficult to lead them to do something. How can we as a civil society push them to do what needs to be done so they can do their part? Whoever wants to jump in, please feel free to do it, both on-site and online. Otherwise, I'll become bossy and I'll say, Laura, please.
Shall I start from the industry side as they who must do more? It is a fair point, and I think, I'm very lucky. There's a reason I work at Roblox, is because this is such a huge priority for us. We want our community to be safe and thriving. But there is always more we can do. We're really innovative at Roblox. We're always looking for new tools and new ways to work with the community and to engage with the broader community, the educators and parents who are also part of this solution to these issues. One thing I would say, which is the challenge for us, is as quickly as we're introducing new tools, to Bill's point, we've just updated our community standards and put them into really simple to understand language for exactly that point. People need to understand where the rules are to begin with. But as quick as we're putting solutions in place, what we do see is the bad actors, the ones who really do want to go out of their way to be harmful, as opposed to the just sort of peer on peer falling out, they will be really, really creative too. So it is difficult for platforms. Whilst there should be a basic level of safety for everybody on these platforms, it is sometimes hard when young people, particularly teenagers, very, very creative, they will find new ways to come and sometimes abuse those systems. So we're always trying to kind of keep up with them as well.
Thanks a lot. I see two raised hands. Lydia? I don't know who raised the hand first, but Lydia?
I think Deborah was there before me. Do you want to go first, Deborah?
Since you've unmuted.
It's okay, go ahead, don't worry.
Thank you. I'll be quick. Yeah, I mean, it is the elephant in the room, and it's heartening, Laura, to hear what you're saying, and really the way you're talking about collaboration is the future. But unfortunately, the biggest barrier to the success of our work is lack of sharing of data by social media platforms, number one, and number two, the fact that there are alternative platforms that are just areas of lawlessness that aren't beholden to anybody and can make up their rules themselves. So, they're two massive problems, and but I have to say, Laura, what you're saying sounds great, and I'd love to talk offline as well about any collaboration. But our work isn't easy.
Thanks a lot, Deborah.
Thank you. No, it follows a little bit what Lydia was saying, and it's very fundamental that we empower also young people to understand how internet works. The internet governance kind of scenarios, like who takes some decisions and what are the spaces in which we can enter as civil society. Civil society, at least on paper, is one of the stakeholders of internet governance that should affect the way in which certain decisions are making. European Union is trying to do many things with the Civil Service Act. So there are things moving. And I want to be optimistic because, again, some things are moving, even though they're doing it mostly for profit. There is the example of, Instagram and LinkedIn having the option of adding pronouns. It's very easy things, but all of a sudden made a lot of people from the LGBT community feel seen. So what I think we can do, and in that gamification can help. So starting a process of rewarding behaviors. This also connecting with what Claudia was saying, because our target is not the haters, but the hate. It's not the bullies, but bullying. So it's about understanding that certain behaviors are positive for us as a whole. So we need to change the narrative of success. What makes us winners? Now we're entering the metaverse. Now there is the Internet of Things. We have immersive experiences. Also, in the most trivial actions, in doing workout or joining a conference, and we should push for deciding that what makes us winners. And this is very important for young people. What makes us successful is doing things together. So, and in my opinion, what can be very helpful, and I think it's something that we can ask of platform, not just, making the reporting kind of a positive behavior, but the supporting of victims. Because what I say to young activists, like, how can I respond to hate? What's the first thing I should do? Ask victims, how are they feeling? Don't engage first with the haters or the trolls or whatever, because again, hate, bullying comes from power imbalances, but we all have certain kind of power. So we must teach young people that a very, very important act of switching power is going to give space and attention to victims. So why not, giving rewards to people who offer support to somebody who's been a target? Showing that, in doing this, you did a nice thing. You made a person feeling heard and, protected. This is something that we should among reporting, because it's been mentioned before. Many people feel also uncomfortable in reporting, feeling like they're snitching. I read also Angie's comment. That's very true. Instead, we are switching the narrative by saying, maybe you don't feel confident to report, but you can surely help people who have been attacked, because that can happen to you. And it would be nice to have people standing up for you. Just say, they don't need to be warriors and fighting the trolls and the hate, but just saying, how are you feeling? Is everything okay with you? Again, sometimes we see these things as very enormous cultural changing. Instead, it's just introducing some small actions in everyday life. And we as practitioners, we as people working with, young people, we can do. And, it's just small actions, and we can push for having these being rewarded and introducing new systems for platform. And I will close, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but we need to understand how internet works, governance processes, and be present in those fora. Because many people that do amazing things ignore completely the world of internet governance and the places where they can interact with platforms and the different stakeholders of internet. We need to be there, and we need to be there more, with more voices and more significantly, or always the same people we talk with the same kind of interests. Sorry about that, and thank you.
No, thanks a lot, Deborah. We have time for, I think,
we have 4 minutes, so I'll leave the floor to Sarah for a couple of minutes before we wrap up. Sarah?
I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Deborah about this thing. I think that big IT companies made much against the hate speech with a code of conduct for banning, for example, users who use hate speech or homophobic speech, racist speech. But I think that the key for this is overturn the point of view, and it's the positive approach and the creation of a supportive community. So the supporting of victims is really the key. That's all.
Thanks a lot. We have 3 more minutes to wrap up. I just want to ask you, we gave you a brief presentation, 1-hour presentation of what the toolkit and the digital platform look like. Does any one of you, I mean, you've been very nice, very kind with us, and you said that you liked it, you appreciate it, but have you seen anything that we should avoid in the future? Something like, you know, a red flag, please stop, don't do this because you're going in the wrong direction. Anything wrong we're doing, anything great mistake, any, you know, something that we should avoid from what we've seen? Don't be kind in this case. No, we're on the right track. That's fantastic. Thanks a lot for participating in this session. I want to thank all the speakers for being here. They've been, and it's been a lively session, and I appreciate all the effort for being here, the effort of being creative, despite the problems of the platform. And I want to thank Tamara for organizing the session. She should have been here. She couldn't make it, and she gave me 2 nice A4 sheets, and I just had to read, and everything went smooth. And I want to give a nice round of applause for the people who, it's Serena Bressan and the other people there that make it run smoothly. And thanks a lot.
Yes, thanks so much, Enrico, and all the speakers for being with us. So much food for thought, so much expertise, and yeah, thank you for all the insights. We are coming now already to the final session of our first policy forum, and during this session we're going to reflect and discuss a bit together about our discussions in the past 2 days, the main takeaways and lessons learned. And for this, I'm inviting Francesca Cesarotti from Amnesty Italy to the stage, who will be sharing this session. And she will be supported by Rita and Andrea from YU.
All the final things. That's it. Here we are. Oh, thanks everybody for being here. But not yet. Now, yes. Now, yes. We are all tired, so thanks everybody for being there these 2 days. So we are easily coming to the end of this 2 days meeting. And I'm very happy to share the stage today with these 2 young colleagues. And they spent 2 days taking notes for all of us, and we would like in this phase to make a quick recap of what happened in these 2 days and give you, if there are not some more inputs, some thoughts, some little thoughts to take back with you back home, and still working with us on what we learned and shared in these 2 days. So, please, Rita, day 1.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to do a quick wrap-up on the panel that we had yesterday in response to the research findings. So first we had Veronica Donoso from UN talking to us about the content of the existing research on cyberbullying, and we had then the opportunity to hear from the panel that was moderated by Sara Tonelli, during which the experts were able to share their their research and the experiences they have had in their fields of work and the work they have done so far. We were joined by, and I'm sorry if I pronounced the names wrong, we were joined by Professor Valerio Basile, Professor Anita Lavorna, Dr. Davide Cino on site, and then Professor Federico Faloppa, Dr. Michelle O'Reilly, and Professor Heidi van der Bosch online. First of all, thank you to all of them for being here with us and sharing their knowledge on this topic. And I'm sure that the inputs they gave us will be very useful in the rest of our project and especially in the creation of the Kid Actions tools. Now, on to the outcomes of the session. First, they were asked to share with us some of the challenges they have encountered in the fight against cyberbullying. And our panel mentioned the difficulties in detecting cyberbullying, first of all. So we heard about challenges with artificial intelligence, because it is still obviously dependent on the human factor. So whereas AI can detect keywords, this is a very blanket process, and whenever the messages are a bit less explicit or direct, it can be a bit more difficult for AI to detect offenses. So this can be also related to the collection of data, which should obviously be void of biases, but people are still collecting data, and if we have a very concise demographic doing this, then the data that we collect is going to reflect that demographic. And then there are also issues with like ethical and legal problems in collecting data related to cyberbullying, because it often occurs in a private sphere, and so the collection of data in this case can be a lot more difficult and sometimes not even possible. Then our panelists also talked about limitations in the research. So we're all doing very good things, and the existing research is very good, but it's still lacking a lot when we compare it to other areas. And also, it is very descriptive and geographically contained. So we need to work beyond that, and we need to understand cyberbullying as a cultural problem, and the research that is done on the topic needs to reflect that as well. So when we talk about a whole school approach, this also needs to apply to research, and it needs to be interdisciplinary. And then one last thing on the limitations of research is it is also very important to consider the other side of cyberbullying. So we cannot look only into the victims, we also need to consider the bullies themselves, and when we conduct research, we need to think about this and understand their contexts and motivations, because more often than not, these young people are also facing their own problems and reflecting them on others. Then our panelists were asked about projects that have been impactful in combating bullying and hate speech, and projects that they know of or have worked on. And so in the spirit of learning from past experiences and having examples of good practices, it is important to consider to update methodologies and approach to involve young people at a much younger age, and then involving people online and offline, because even though cyberbullying may happen online, our lives are not compartmentalized like that. So the work that is done need to reflect that. And then we need to be able to measure the impact of all of these projects in the long term and understand if they're affecting young people in a positive way throughout their lives. And then develop digital and linguistic competences, media literacy, language literacy, online and offline, for young people as well as adults. Then when it comes to suggestions to take into account to build our own Kid Actions toolkit, the first important suggestion is to start from as much scientific evidence as possible, and then create tools that change behaviors in a positive manner to make young people react to bullying and to stop it, bullying and cyberbullying. Then, again, the whole school approach involves everyone, teachers, youth workers, parents, educators in general, the police, media channels, the industry, in short, all levels of society. And then also teach the adults on how to react to cyberbullying, because it's a bit pointless to encourage young people to report, but then not have educated adults on how to react to these reports. Then when it comes to the development of tools specifically, technological tools should be as simple as possible, and then we should not shy away from non-technological tools because they're oftentimes less expensive to develop and can be very effective among young people. And then on this topic, finally, understand the heterogeneity of the group that we're talking about, so children and young people, and understand that their contexts and their personalities make them respond differently to cyberbullying, and so we need to take that in consideration, and the databases that we use to build these tools need to be a lot more broad than the white European middle class young people that we're approaching right now. And then the final, let's say, insights on this topic during the panel were related to the role that artificial intelligence plays in this. And so our panelists said that it is important to develop systems that support the decisions of humans, and that dialogue between with the sender and the receiver of messages, instead of having a blanket blocking of keywords, for example. And then also consider different perspectives. The panelists told us time and time again that cyberbullying and bullying in general is a cultural problem, so we cannot work under the assumption that something that is hurtful for me is going to be hurtful for Andrea, and that it's hurtful equally all around the world. And then the last comment was on answering to issues of ethics and privacy. And according to our panelists, the answer is a multi-method approach, a multi-method research that can analyze the issue from different perspectives. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Rita, and good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Malena, and I'm also from YEU. So this morning we had a very fruitful debate and very interesting sessions. The first one, the deep dive session, trying to understand what the Kids Action digital education platform and educational toolkit are. We were led by Alessio Palmero Aprosio, Enrico Maria Piras, and Gareth Court, which I want to thank you, and also the PhD student from FBK, which led us in the high school hero with a, let's say, live representation and dive into the this new game. Then we had the stakeholder roundtable. Let me thank you one by one: Dorotea Riccobono, Claudia Matera, Lidia Elcuri, Laura Higgins, Deborah Barletta, Sara Cerretelli, Caridad Alarson Sanchez, Angie Wright, and Bill Ho. Thank you very much for all your contributions. The roundtable and also the deep dive question session was very interesting, and I will try to make a wrap-up session trying to combine all the inputs and the outputs that came out during these two sessions. So starting from the bad news, so we heard from Obesu that cyberbullying is occurring, is a thing, and it's extremely important for us to tackle this topic, as young generation need to have some safe spaces, and they often lack of knowledge on how to use technology safely and healthily. They ask for intergenerational support, is a great need that they have, and also on the other side, we also have to understand, and we also understood it yesterday, that on the other hand, online spaces and technologies do not necessarily need to be a threat, but they can be conceived as spaces and places where learning processes may occur, and pupils learn what can be threatening, what can be dangerous and intimidating. Another issue that came up in the last debate was always talking about bad news, the lack of sharing data from the social media companies, which makes it hard often to have a fully fledged understanding of the topic. But now let's move on the good news, because there are also good news, and there's a great amount of work that has been done and it's currently being doing. And this forum, I think it proves it. We listened several examples, good practices and experiences related to the topic, and both in the first session and in the second. What is remarkable is that technology and the use of artificial intelligence proves to be extremely useful. We heard from Lidia Elcuri and her spin-off project from the University of Antwerp. Let me mention the weekly sessions that they organize to analyze and raise awareness about the new words, new trends, new hashtags, conspiracy theories upcoming that might be dangerous for the people and users online. One thing that she also mentioned, but that came out many times, was adding a human in the loop. So technology is an instrument, is a tool, and needs to be merged with human presence, human sensitiveness, and also experience. We heard that also yesterday, that also in terms of moderation of contents, often combining artificial intelligence with human experience can be very fruitful. In addition to this, gamification helps. We saw it, and we hear a lot of interesting inputs and insights. Cosplay experience, for instance. We heard Sara Cerretelli combining gaming word and hate speech, both at the formal and non-formal level, and games are educational tool and need to be used as such. As also Claudia Matera said, we are all players. So video games are a tool and experience, and a common effort is needed to become all familiar with them, get into them, and learn how to exploit them in a positive way. Another important aspect is working on raising awareness and on prevention. When combining hate speech, bullying, cyberbullying phenomena, it's extremely important to work on the root causes, look at the common factors, which are often related to, as we said, power imbalances. So cases and situations of speech, bullying, cyberbullying occur where power imbalances occur. Let me quote Deborah Barletta when saying that we often focus on the effect, but there's a wide margin of maneuver when it comes to prevention. So how to construct counter and alternative narratives. For instance, asking the good questions and accurate questions to young generation, helping them to find tools to answer them themselves on this question, trying to avoid polarization and oversimplification, and showing that we are all involved in this common fight and face change together. Another important aspect related to this is the need of a higher involvement of adults, meaning teachers, educators, youth workers, parents, which sometimes struggle to have a comprehensive understanding of the phenomenon. They are sometimes also struggling with media literacy skills, so they have troubles to understand what the needs of the kids and the young generations are. Another and the last point that I want to mention related to this is what Dorothea Riccobono said: problems occur in specific moments of school's life, before and after school, in the gym, in the locker room, during the break, when teachers and professors are less present, if not absent. So the importance of having sometimes the adult involved can be instrumental to fight episodes and to prevent episodes of bullying and cyberbullying. Last but not least, let me, let's say, give a bit of a personal feedback, trying to add a human in the loop. And I think that these two sessions of this morning, but also the all the work that has been done during these 2 days and also during this first year of project, made one thing clear, which is that cyberbullying might be an issue that is mostly related to young people, but it's not a problem of young people. And cyberbullying is, on the contrary, a challenge that our society as a whole need to deal with and to master. Every single sector, we saw it, private, public, third sector, in every single context and setting, being it formal or non-formal, need to work together and at any age in order to raise awareness, prevent and combat cyberbullying as a community.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing. I would like to share with you how inspiring was to work with these two immense guys in these 2 days, because we have been working together. They share their notes with me and try to keep up in things. So thanks very much for what you have done so far. So, really, thanks very much. So, a few words before coming to the end of this meeting. Oh gosh, here we are. What I'm taking with me, and I do hope we can share the same approach of these 2 days, about the virtual environments. I entered this room talking about dangers of digital environments, but I'm going out from this room talking about opportunities. We have been listening to amazing projects, initiatives from Sarah, Claudia, Laura, etc., bringing us to that deep change of perspective. Video games are the evil, pop rock culture are the evil, fashion shows are the evil, or maybe are they opportunities we can use to change our perspective on the issue? This is the question. I heard many explanations about that, and I'm very interested in listening to our young colleagues and you on all this project, taking these things that we always consider as the evil, trying to use them and change our approach, mentality, and perception about that. There are many initiatives. We're going to share all these initiatives with you, with links, experiences, etc. It is going to be extremely important for all of us to use them, to taste them, to measure ourselves with these new tools. Comment it where possible, comment kids' actions, activities and tools. Help us to improve. Help us to improve and change. Help us change in the mentality of adults as we are. Then, younger and younger. I try to sum up things. We have been talking about people and young people from 11 to 18, 25, so young people. What I learned, what I knew from Davide, and Davide summed up the EU Kids Online, which is absolutely the key research on this topic that probably will put at disposal of all of you, that not only kids from 11 to 18 are online. Children from 6, 7, 8 are online, and this is the reality. We can ignore this. They are there. They are online against the law, basically, and they see hate. They see hate, and they can recognize hate. Believe me, they know what it is. They don't know, we were talking about asymmetry, unbalancing on power. They don't know all the characteristics about bullying, cyberbullying, so repetitiveness, intentionality, asymmetry, etc. They don't know anything about that, but they know hate. They see hate. They basically are exposed. They know how it feels to be followed by hate. Not only at school, because cyberbullying has one more dimension. It follows you. Back at home, in the toilet, in the most intimate places of your houses, because it's here. Hate is here. And I know that you have all of this, all the devices are under your seats, in your hand, and are always with us. And hate is here. And they are constantly exposed to hate, and they can recognize it, basically. And this is something we should definitely take into the account from 7-year-old children. So we must change the approach again. Change. The invitation is to change the approach. Not more the linguistic, not the understanding, but we can use the empathy, because they know what hate is. But, again, who's the victim? They know what hate is. But still, as Davide was saying, according to the survey of the EU Kids Online, 2 out of 3 kids, when they are exposed to hate, they simply do nothing. Nothing. I know hate, I feel exposed, and I do nothing. I know that perpetrators, they don't report. That's for sure. Why should I? We know that victims don't report. It is typical of every victim of hate crime. Victims of hate, they don't report. For many reasons. They are scared. Just can you imagine how immense can be the unbalancing of power of a 8, 9-year-old kid looking at violent words, actions, being exposed and feeling alone? Probably I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't report. Who can trust me? Who can help me? How can I trust others? Family, teachers, all the adults around me. Who can trust me? But there's a third dimension that our colleagues touched bystanders. Why bystanders don't do anything? Because it's extremely difficult to be real, strong human rights defenders and take position against your peers, in front of your peers, and protect your friends. Even if I know that is your friend, that's a strong, I must be strong and strong. And when I see these kids taking such a position, I feel so proud of them, so proud, as any other human defenders, human rights defenders on this earth, because they are so strong. And it's extremely difficult to step into a toilet in a school and take a position for a friend, to step into a chat on WhatsApp, TikTok, and say, no, this is unfair. You need to be extremely brave. And that's an enormous thing to do for a 10-year-old kid, all alone. They don't do anything, but they feel they are not guilty. Bystanders are not guilty, but they feel guilty. And that's enormous. How can we sustain this enormous sense of powerlessness coming from our kids? They feel guilty. And it's up to us to protect them and to create them spaces, free spaces to take action. And fight together with them this sense, again, of powerlessness. What can I do? You teachers, educators here around and online, how many times did you listen to these words? Hi, prof, hi, teacher, what can I do to change things? I'm so small, I'm so weak, I'm nothing. And this is something we can change together. This is something we can definitely change together. Because, Andrea just told this, kids are the solution, they are not the problem. They are not the problem. Alex, Gareth, they called us many, many times to this. They are not the problem, they are the solution. We must support them, listen to them, help them feeling, bring them to empathy, inspire, protect them, engage them, and finally empower them. Deborah said something I didn't noted at the very beginning. They say, trust them, trust kids. They are the solution, just trust them. Whole school approach, whole school approach. Whole school approach, what does it mean? Teachers, non-teaching staff, students, families, principals, of course, all working together, creating a safe space in the school. But is it enough? When there are so many different dimensions about education. This is the formal education system. We can do a lot in the curricula, outside the curricula, creating new occasion of activism, changing things, opening discussion, forums, and so on. Is it enough? When we have also formal, non-formal education, there's another dimension we should consider altogether. And finally, Federico Faloppa was saying that, what about the informal education? What about this? When we open a channel and we want kids to share their thoughts during the breakfast with their families, or together on the buses with peers, are we creating spaces for them? What do we know about this process of education? What do we know about what's happening next? Deborah, don't stop making questions. Ask, 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 ask. What happened afterwards, our intervention? Just ask, trust kids. Ask, share, involve families, involve the teachers, involve the peers, involve, ask. And again, Federico again said that. What about media operators? Social media companies, we can trust them. We can listen to kids, but how these companies would, well, listen to kids? It's up to us to create safe spaces for kids to be trusted, listen, and open to social media companies. It's up to us, not to them. It's up to us to create these spaces. NGOs, all the academics, data are missing. We know data are missing. That's common. This is underreporting. I'm a victim. I don't report. I don't have data. I feel guilty. I'm afraid. I'm terrified. I don't report. We can open a channel of communication, hoping in gaining the trust of kids, supporting this. Underreporting is part of it, is in the DNA of hate. It's up to us. So create spaces for kids, create channel of communication. Let's share this together. And that is why here I want to say thank you. Thank you for these 2 days, but thank you for the future. I know, because this is an engagement for some of you, but starting from tomorrow, there's a lot of work to do together. So thank you, not for the work done so far, but for the engagement of the work to do, starting from this afternoon, tomorrow, and the day tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Francesca and colleagues, to close our first Kid Actions Policy Forum in such an honest way with such powerful words. So much to take away from these 2 days. And this only leads me to say thank you, first and foremost, to our colleagues from FBK, Sara, Alessia, Serena, for hosting us and for all the work you have been doing. Thank you so much. Also, big thank you to my colleagues at European Schoolnet, who together with FBK have been putting this program together and have been working a lot behind the scenes in the past 2 days, and also the other project partners from Amnesty, from YU, and the colleagues from the province in Trento. Really a pleasure to work with you on this project. And of course, all of you here with us who made all the way to Trento, but also those who have been following online. I hope it was an enriching experience for all of you. And yeah, we look very much forward continuing our work. As you have learned, a lot of exciting things are happening next year in the Kid Actions project, and we are definitely looking forward seeing you next year, hopefully all together again in Brussels for the 2nd edition of the Policy Forum. Safe trip home to everyone, and yeah, enjoy this sunny and beautiful Trento. And for those of you online, we do hope to see you next year in person as well. Thank you so much. Grazie.